Okay, I think that we can start. As most of you already know, my name is Juan. I'm here to facilitate or host this panel that it's called Accountability, Inclusivity, and Choices. And we'll have the opportunity to see 3 exploratory papers that discuss evaluation and decision-making from the perspective of participatory design, research, and practice. Sophia, can you go to the next slide? I'm joining this panel from the comfort and the privileged position of the apartment where I live in Buleke Bek land. And I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners and custodians of these lands. And I migrated here from Colombia, and I would like to extend my acknowledgement to all indigenous communities and traditional owners of those lands. If anyone wants to acknowledge owners or custodians of the lands where you are at this moment, I would kindly invite you to do that in the chat. Next. Here's a reminder of the panel etiquette. You might have seen this in previous panels, so you might know what the guidelines are about, but it's just about like being kind. And before we start with the first panel, I'm going to put the PDFs of the papers. Okay, it doesn't work. In the chat, because I think that it's very useful to have the paper when you are listening to the presentation, but apparently this time the chat doesn't allow me to do that. But if you have the paper, I would like to invite you to have a look at the papers, because in a couple of the presentations that we'll see, or a couple of the presentations we'll see that don't include important examples and case studies that are in the papers. So we'll see the 3 papers. First, we'll see evaluation in participatory design, then expanding evaluation design towards the biophysical context, and finally, design decision competence. Between panels, we'll have 5 minutes, 5 minutes for like specific punctual questions about each paper, if there's any. If not, we'll continue, and at the end, we'll have time for an open discussion and questions for each of the papers. Sophia, so this is the first paper, evaluation in participatory design, the whys and notes by Quynh, and Sophia will play the video. Thank you.
We do not hear the sound.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that. I don't know why. It was working when we were trying. Sorry.
Where? So when you share the video, you need to click on share sound. Also, I'm happy to share if you want.
Yes, I clicked actually on this. Let me try once again. I'm so sorry for that. I don't know what's going on here.
It's fine. It's fine.
I will refresh it again.
By the French, but participatory design, the whys and the nots.
My name is Nguyen from the Center for Technology
So
Experience.
is there now sound?
Yes,
Yeah, we can hear
it's
it
working.
now.
Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry, I will do the. Yeah.
Welcome to my presentation on evaluation in participatory design, the whys and the nots. My name is Nguyen from the Center for Technology Experience of the AIT Austrian Institute of Technology. I speak to you today, and as always, as a child of Vietnamese refugees who fled after the Vietnam War to Germany. Vietnam has a fraught history of colonialization by the French, but growing up in the diaspora, I never experienced the negative impacts of it myself. Instead, I benefit in many ways from the prosperity of the countries I have grown up in and currently live in, Germany and Austria. I'm continuously realizing and reflecting the extent to which my views and beliefs are shaped by my cultural and personal experiences. Some aspects, like whose voices are heard in science and society, I've already questioned from my perspective as a Vietnamese German woman. But I'm discovering many others, like the question of whose knowledge is privileged or even considered to be knowledge, and aim to let these continue to shape my future research. So I'm truly thankful for the opportunity the acknowledgement of country has given me by providing the space to reflect on my positionality as a researcher and, more importantly, as a person. As such, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, skies, and waters, give respect to all First Nations members, and thank the wisdom and strength of Indigenous elders before, now, and into the future. Today, I want to speak to you about systematic evaluation and PD. The practice of PD has expanded to various applications outside of its original political goal of workplace emancipation. It is also becoming a more common, pragmatic practice to integrate participants in the design and development of new technologies. As the most comprehensive literature review on evaluation in PD by Bråthen et al. In 2016 found, the process of evaluation in participatory design is not yet very well established. This is one of the weaknesses of PD, because it makes it difficult to assess whether PD projects have achieved their central goals or show the impact participation has on design or outcomes of design. The intention behind this paper was therefore to put a spotlight on systematic evaluation in PD. To do so, it first discusses how systematic evaluation may positively impact and address some of the internal struggles of PD. Second, it intends to start a conversation with the PD community on why such evaluations are so rarely done currently. Third, it aims to provide hypotheses on why systematic evaluation is not a common practice in PD and begin a discussion about these factors. Fourth, it invites a rethinking of what evaluation may mean for PD practices and a reflection of our own views and relationship with evaluation as part of scientific practice. To do so, I present some reasons for doing systematic evaluation in PD, the whys, as well as some hypotheses on why evaluation is not common in PD yet, the nots. This presentation does not exhaustively describe all possible whys and nots, and neither does the full paper. However, I hope it gives food for thought and kickstarts a conversation and rethinking. I want to emphasize that I do not posit any specific type of evaluation as the correct one. Particularly, this is not an attempt to view PD through a positivistic mindset. Systematic evaluation in PD should acknowledge the practice's situatedness and be conducted in a way that fits the ontologies, epistemologies, and cosmologies of the given PD project. The first why I want to draw your attention to is that the lack of evaluation in PD has been hindering the reuse and building on of existing knowledge, because it is not clear whether and which parts of knowledge are generalizable or situated, and why. As Bråthen and Iversen in 2002 have argued, reflection in action and off-loop reflection define expertise in PD, allowing researchers and practitioners to conduct systematic work beyond unstructured and ad hoc design analysis and decisions. While this reflection can happen without a systematic evaluation, formalizing it would make it easier to integrate into the practice, especially for beginners in PD work. Moreover, evaluations can make design decisions tangible and understandable from the outside, hence improving PD practices. This would also facilitate PD practitioners to share deeper knowledge of doing PD. The second why I'm presenting here I've termed outside the bubble. So the lack of systematic and explicit evaluations is frequently criticized within the field. This has made it difficult to communicate the benefits and harms of PD research outside our bubble to other scientific fields, technology developers or other clients, and the public generally. By documenting realized benefits and impact of PD work, systematic evaluations may pave the way for recognition from management and acknowledge its needs to communicate itself to society. The question is, therefore, does the lack of mature systematic evaluation make PD a less attractive or sensible design process? Do we need to provide more validity to external stakeholders of our PD research and work? Following now are two hypotheses for why evaluation has not been established in PD yet. First, let's take a look at the overhead of evaluation. So, evaluation is already established in various scientific disciplines, mirroring trends in scientific and societal practice towards reflexive modernity and new public management. But there are good reasons against evaluations when they are unnecessary or ill-reasoned. In what is often called the audit society, criteria for evaluation are usually related to costs, project outcomes, and adherence to project timelines. The primary reason to evaluate projects is thus for reasons of control and accountability, rather than for intentions such as strengthening and deepening knowledge. Evaluation may thus be considered additional tedious work rather than providing meaningful inputs for those involved in PD work, and might have caused evaluation fatigue and cynicism. Another reason for the lack of evaluation may be the complexity and the amount of work required when conducting a PD evaluation. Challenges to how PD should be conducted and viewed make the issue of evaluation all the more complex. For example, Light and Ackermann in 2012 put a spotlight on the role of facilitation in designing with communities, arguing that PD methods are strongly connected and embodied by the practitioner. And Pikala and Karashdi in 2016 proposed a reflexive orientation towards engaging in design to take part in the situatedness of design while holding onto the ethical, political, and creative ideals of PD. Taking these and many other relevant aspects of PD work into consideration for an evaluation may make it too complex to address in a feasible process. These notes I have presented exemplify some of the challenges for future PD. Solutions to these will be complex, transdisciplinary, and immensely difficult to achieve. Some of them require larger systematic awareness and change. However, a first step in addressing the challenges is to make them visible in everyday PD practices. Only if we speak about them in explicit terms can we systematically address them in our doing, and only then can other people, the PD community, other scientific fields, and the general public understand these challenges. Evaluation is one generally established tool to turn these internal processes inside out, to shape the practice of PD within, and to communicate the PD process to the outside. The intention of this paper was to put the spotlight on the reasons why we should conduct systematic and explicit evaluations of PD work. First, as a way to increase the possibility to achieve the lofty goals of idealistic PD, such as democratic technology development, mutual learning, and empowerment of those that are affected by the technologies. Second, to position PD as a valid method for interdisciplinary research in response to the requirements and expectations that modern society has of research. And third, as a way to improve PD practices by making the goals and the extent to which the goals are reached explicit in PD projects. I want to repeat again that any assessment of PD should reflect its foundation and integrate its relevant ontologies, epistemologies, and cosmologies. Importantly, we might have to consider new alternative pathways for conveying evaluation. For example, outside of the main body of a paper, we could add conducted evaluations explicitly to an appendix or contribute evaluations in short paper formats. Concerning the question of why evaluation has not become a part of the PD tradition as of yet, this paper only lays out first conjectures and ruminations. The paper is as much an opinion piece on evaluation in PD as it is an invitation to the community to find and discuss answers to the topic. As such, objections and additions are welcomed. I hope that this work aids in catalyzing a richer discourse within the PD community on the evaluation of PD. With this in mind, I'm looking forward to discussing my paper with you, online or in person. Danke, gammon, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question or comment for this paper? Okay, I find the paper very provocative, and I really like to see a paper of such a controversial, at least for me, or like based on my experience doing PD with healthcare professionals. I've always found that evaluation is something that is very controversial, especially when we collaborate with people, stakeholders from other disciplines. But if no one has a question, we can.
Elisavet has her hand, right?
Yes. Hi. So is it okay if Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yes, of course, yeah. Please.
Thank you so much, Quynh, for this. We all loved your paper when we were reading it before the session, and we think it's so interesting, and it relates so much to what we have observed in terms of, especially of why evaluation is not done, or people avoid doing it, or it's so complex, and all of that. And specifically about that, how to change the factors of why evaluation is not done in participatory design, but in design research in general and design practice. You mentioned perhaps an appendix or a short paper format, but I was thinking, have you had discussions with designers who have already done tried different things of how to incorporate evaluation, and specifically how to share the insights, or not? I was interested to.
Yeah, thanks, Elisavet, for the comment.
So Sophia, can you please stop sharing so we can?
Okay. Thanks, Elisavet, for the question. And unfortunately, I haven't gotten any insightful ideas that have been implemented in designers' work about evaluation. I received very helpful and interesting comments from some of my reviewers who were mentioning that they have seen improvements in acceptance of specifically like systematic evaluation. I think their area was healthcare, that it's becoming more accepted. But overall, like in terms of the format and how to communicate it, I haven't seen much innovation in a way. I was also thinking, should you make it less exclusive by doing it in a blog post or on YouTube, or like all these venues that are also more open to the public? Because in my point of view, evaluation is a way to show to the public that what you're doing with public money is sensible, is valuable, and is done with the good of the public in mind. But I haven't seen much in terms of practical work, unfortunately. So I hope this at least makes us think about how we can change that.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Elisavet. I would have so many things to say about those points. Maybe if we have time, we can discuss more at the end of the 3 presentations. And Francisca, thanks for your question. Maybe that's the first question that we have once we open the panel to a more general conversation, so we can have time to see all the papers. Thanks, Francisca. And now Sophia will share her screen to show us the pre-recorded video of the second paper. expanding evaluation design towards the biophysical context. Thank you.
Hello, thank you all for taking the time to join this presentation today. My name is Pinar Ceyhan and I'm a lecturer at Lancaster University. This presentation is based on the evaluation research my colleagues and I are undertaking at Imagination Lancaster, a design-led research lab. Our presentation today focuses on expanding evaluation design towards the biophysical context. At a time when there is a growing need for resilience, sustainability, inclusivity, and recovery, we believe expanding evaluation design towards the biophysical context offers unique opportunities for evaluators and designers to consider how an evaluation subject is affected directly by its environmental surroundings. We also propose the use of creative evaluation methods as a more engaging way of exploring the biophysical context of an evaluation subject. Creative evaluation approaches often relate to participatory, exploratory, co-design and co-creation driven approaches that seek to expand the scope within which they are situated. The proposition of expanding evaluation design towards the biophysical context is being aligned with efforts that explore how design processes can consider complexities, implications, benefits, and opportunities associated with the subject's broader ecosystems, networks, and environments. Before discussing further how creative evaluation approaches can help expand evaluation design towards the biophysical context, I would like to clarify how we approach the biophysical context. The biophysical context can be understood as the environmental surroundings of a subject and how these affect its states of being. A subject in the context of evaluation could include a program, project, organization, or an intervention. Its environmental surroundings can be part of the natural, social, built, cultural, economic, or technological environments, and the biophysical context considers how these environmental surroundings influence the subject's states of being, such as its survival, well-being, development, evolution, and potentially more. In many ways, biophysical contexts are similar to ecosystem contexts like ecosystem design, ecosystem mapping, and ecosystem thinking, where we seek to understand the relationships and dependencies between the various actors and systems of a subject's environmental networks. However, what this paper proposes is a new approach in evaluation design inspired by biophysics, which we believe can be applied in other design contexts as well, and which treats a subject like an organization or a program, for example, as a living entity. The biophysical context can be used as a lens that aims to highlight the relationship between a subject's various environmental surroundings and its different states of being, contributing to a better understanding of how a subject is connected to the world and how it can be positively or negatively affected by environmental factors and parameters that are often unapparent or overlooked. Biophysics has become increasingly transdisciplinary in the sense that its theories, methodologies, methods, and approaches are being adopted and applied across disciplinary fields like policy design, community health management, applied geography, forestry, agriculture, archaeology, and sports management. Exploring the biophysical context enables research to consider aspects that may be highly influential to findings and can provide a deeper understanding of a subject's context and appreciation of complexity, both which are areas of particularly relevant to evaluation design. A biophysical environment is not static. Instead, it is constantly being affected by a variety of environmental factors and parameters, including but not limited to natural, social, economic, cultural, built, and technological environment. These factors and parameters can also interact with each other as well as having their own unique influence. As each biophysical context is considered unique to its subject, the environmental surroundings explored may also change. New categories might emerge, whilst others are omitted in reaction to the context that is being evaluated. In a world full of growing complexity and interconnectivity, evaluators are often called to develop methods and tools that support better understandings of how evaluation subjects are connected to and affected by their surrounding ecosystems, networks, and systems. It is within this scope that we are proposing the biophysical context as a promising exploratory lens for designing evaluation that takes into account the environmental surroundings of a subject and how they affect its various states of being. This process of considering, acknowledging, and exploring these relationships can provide very useful insights as it raises questions like, what are a subject's environmental surroundings that affect its well-being, survival, development, and evolution? What are the systems and networks in place that link the subject to its environmental surroundings? What are the short-term, medium-term, and long-term projections for stability or change in relation to these surroundings? How resilient are these surroundings? What plans and actions can be developed to ensure that the subject can continue to benefit from its environmental surroundings? How do a subject's different environmental factors interact with each other, and how a subject's environmental surroundings affect its states of being over time? The benefits of expanding evaluation design towards the biophysical context could potentially be numerous. In our paper, you can read more about these benefits, but to name a couple, adopting an exploratory approach provides a space for new knowledge, learnings, and insights to emerge, which can inform development of strategies, plans, and actions that can better support the subject's resilience, sustainability, and recovery. Placing the focus of the evaluation outside the subject's own space connects subject with its surroundings and recognizes and values the unique and potentially diverse environmental factors and even patterns that contribute to its states of being, like well-being, survival, development, and evolution. Our research explores how creative evaluation can be used as a mechanism for evaluators to expand their scope towards the biophysical context. Creative evaluation can be understood as a constellation of approaches used in a variety of contexts involving various conceptualizations of creativity. We identified that creative evaluation is being used across a variety of sectors, such as in health, education, social work, creative and cultural industries, and in community engagement. Creative evaluation approaches employ qualities and characteristics that are part of creative thinking, such as plurality, problem-solving, innovation, flexibility, synthesis, and transcross inter- and multidisciplinarity, and creative methods such as visualizations, novel tools, gamification, engagement, participation, and artistic expression. From our research, we have identified many examples of evaluation that are utilizing such creative tools, methods, and approaches to facilitate participatory, exploratory, co-design, and co-creation-driven activities as part of evaluation design to engage different stakeholders and participants in the process. I'll now present a speculative example of how creative evaluation approaches can be utilized to expand evaluation design towards the biophysical context. You can find more examples in our paper. These hypothetical scenarios use creative evaluation methods and tools at the exploratory stages of the evaluation design to support participants in examining the biophysical context of an evaluation subject. The example you are looking at on this slide is a hypothetical evaluation project commissioned by a city council titled Evaluating Citizens' Engagement with the City 2 years after the COVID-19 pandemic. Here, a city map acts as a physical representation of the city, where participants can identify various environmental factors that relate to citizens' engagement at the exploratory stage of the evaluation design process. Different colored stickers and sticky notes can be used to represent different themes being explored, which can highlight both idiosyncrasies and areas of shared thoughts. Furthermore, it can also be used to compare different time periods and consider changes that have occurred over time, such as pre-COVID and during COVID time periods. This method also has the potential to be used to speculate on potential features which can support the City Council's strategic planning. The biophysical context offers possibilities for developing a new outlook towards evaluation design, while at the same time, the application of participatory and co-design methods and tools, like the ones creative evaluation employs, has the potential to support participants' inclusivity and engagement in the exploratory design process. Most importantly, the biophysical context, as discussed in this paper, proposes placing a subject like an organization, program, project, or an intervention at the center of the exploratory process and treating it as a living entity with its own unique environmental surroundings and its own unique states of being. We suggest that this process has the potential to reveal new connections, knowledge, and learnings of how a subject is being connected to the world and how it is being affected by its environmental surroundings that have been previously overlooked or haven't been apparent. We're always looking to expand our network for collaborations. If you are interested in the biophysical context or creative evaluation, please feel free to get in touch and have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Pinar. Thanks, Sophia. Questions or comments for this paper? Okay, I think that we have comments or questions at the end. Very interesting method. I wasn't aware of this creative evaluation approach, but I checked some of the references and it seems very interesting. And I really like how the example is related to mapping methods. Okay, let's continue with the last paper. Sophia, can you please share? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Harald Maartmann-Moe,
Design decision competence.
Okay. In our paper, Design Decision Competence, Supporting User Participation in Design Decisions, which I wrote with my colleagues Heidi Bråthen, Suhas Govind Joshi, and Bratteteig. In this exploratory paper, we propose the notion of design decision competence to support the planning, understanding, and description of participation in design. The basis for the notion of design decision competence is a perspective on design as decision-making, combined with the notion of informed consent in a medical tradition. Design decision competence serves as a tool to describe what participants need in order to truly take part in design decisions, contributing to the discourse on genuine participation. Design decision competence is closely tied to mutual learning and mainly the responsibility of designers. Design decision competence involves developing an understanding of the situation and context which the design result will be a part of, getting the possibility to understand, bring in, and create one's own design ideas, choosing which of the design ideas to try out, engaging in concretizing the ideas by deciding on materials and forms of the design result, developing an understanding of the consequences of design decisions for use and for their design process. In this presentation, I will go through the 6 elements with some examples from my research projects. The projects are described in more detail in the paper. The first 2 elements can be described with experiences from a workshop with older adults creating robots in the home. The workshop was held in the Center for Old People, where we recruited 7 participants for discussing ideas for what a robot could do in their home. In the workshop, we provided familiar materials for simple prototyping such as paper, cardboard, textiles, and boxes, which you can see in the image on the right. The participants prototyped robots while discussing the prototype's role and use with researchers and each other. One of the participants came up with the idea to have an arm on a robot so that it could pick up things from the floor and also reach the upper shelves in the kitchen. Moreover, this robot could wash her back in the shower and stir sauce. One of the others around the table picked up on the idea and suggested to have 2 arms so that the robot could become a dancing partner. You can see this robot on the image on the left here. In this workshop, we saw that the robot prototypes were grounded in the use context and challenges and opportunities that the participants face in their everyday. The robot workshop enabled the participants to develop their own preferences and ideas based on their context through material exploration. I'll use experiences from another project to describe the next 2 elements of design decision competence. In this project, we initiated a collaboration with an activity center for older people, where visitors from the local community came for socializing and activities. They found joy in social activities and wanted to communicate with family, friends, and services in more ways than currently possible. With the participants, we agreed to take on extending their communication capabilities. We explored possibilities during our cooperation using existing technologies and prototypes based on relevant technologies and their preferences and ideas. In the workshop, we discussed various ways to create messages, and the participants were interested in speaking, typing, and recording messages rather than other methods such as handwriting. I therefore created a prototype that enabled the participants to construct messages in these 3 manners. The participants dictated the ideas that would be tried out. You can see the prototype in the image on the right here. The prototype used the same interface and was functional enough to provide them with real experiences with the technology. After the participants had used the prototype to explore, we discussed their preferences and ideas, and they decided that voice dictation would be a good direction to pursue. After a few workshops on look and feel, we began concretizing a voice dictation prototype. With participants, I drew an interface and programmed an app while they directed what elements should be included, their look, when they should appear, in what order, and for how long. The photos on the left show some of these prototyping activities. These activities over time enabled the participants to develop their own preferences and ideas for the design. I will also use the phone project to describe the last 2 elements of design decision competence. More specifically, one of the earlier prototypes. In this case, I made a smaller prototype that would print messages on paper in large type so that they could see the messages better and in a different way, and tear it off and show it somewhere else if they needed, for example, a text message about a doctor's appointment. I made the prototype robust enough so that the older adults could take it home and try it out by themselves over time on their own terms. The duration and experience they could create on their own terms with the prototype and design process gave them an understanding of the design decision's consequences for use. Here on the right, we see a picture where participants are using the prototype and receiving a message while having dinner together. It sparked conversation and lasting discussion. The prototypes in this project were robust and independent, as in they were independent of me being present for them to function. The independent prototypes enabled the participants to try them out at home and experience the consequences of their design choices. In this paper, we have described the notion of design decision competence and used 2 participatory design projects to describe the elements and how they may be achieved. We have argued that users need design decision competence to participate in design decisions. We particularly emphasize that enabling participants in developing their own ideas and understanding the consequences of decisions are essential to design decision competence. In other words, participation. To achieve this, understanding the context is necessary, and participants need the opportunity and tools to build this understanding. I have used independent prototypes over time to enable participants to build this understanding and plan on working with this further. It will also be interesting to explore how we can assess design decision competence and develop the notion further.
Thank you. Thank you, Harald, and thank you, everyone. Now we have time for more open discussion. Please feel free to raise your hand or write questions on the chat. And let's start with a comment that Francisca made for the first paper. Francisca, would you like to frame that comment as a question and make that question?
Yes, I can do so. Yeah, what I was thinking about was a very nice presentation. Thank you. I was thinking about a paper that I wrote recently, and it was about a participatory design process that we like merged with elements of contextual design. And the paper was basically about how we did our design process. And along our design process, we did some evaluations of each step. And obviously, I wanted to include the evaluation of what we did, but only describing our process took like the whole paper. It was so complicated to cut it down. And I wondered whether there's any way to have a separate evaluation form, as you suggested. Maybe it could be short papers that are always about evaluation, and we know we could place our evaluations there or something. So we wouldn't have to plug them into all the other extensive stuff that we do. Yeah, maybe that's some kind of question.
I definitely feel you, Francisca. I've had the same experience with papers where either you discuss with your co-authors, should we just remove the evaluation because it's not the main meaty point, or should we include it? And then sometimes you get reviewer feedback that it's interesting, but maybe not as interesting as the main part of the paper. So I don't know, I think again, like as I said in the paper, it's unfortunately or fortunately something I think we have to think of as a scientific community in PD, in design work, etc., to find solutions. And like I'm happy already that I'm apparently not the only one who would like to explicitly communicate what my evaluations have found out. And I don't know, like when you mentioned different forms, I was thinking, well, there are like case studies that can be presented at some conferences. There are, you know, interactivity or situated actions. Maybe it's something that where evaluations could find a spot somewhere there. But I think all the solutions-based things that I opened up with this paper, we have to kind of figure out together somehow.
Yeah, I also like the idea of having a place in the appendix or supplements or whatever. So maybe it would be helpful to have like a set of questions to answer about your evaluation to put in the appendix. So maybe every PD paper could have a answer your evaluation questions appendix part. I'm not sure whether this bloats everything, but yeah.
If I may, I want to make a point in relation to this comment and this conversation, and it's something that I've always found a bit problematic and I think that that's part of the problem with evaluation, is that we always, not just in PD, but in more disciplines and even beyond design disciplines, we see evaluation or we use evaluation as something that is almost external to the project, is beyond the project itself. It's always done at the end of the project. For example, in the projects that I do with healthcare providers or government organizations, I'm not even involved in the evaluation, because there's this fear that if I'm involved in the evaluation, then it won't be a fair evaluation. So sometimes evaluation is outsourced to other researchers, other departments. So I think that the question is, and as your paper said, and other papers, the other two papers also suggested, evaluation should follow PD principles and foundations. So I think that, and this is a question for all the presenters, is how can we make evaluation more participatory, or how can we do participatory evaluation? How can we bring evaluation to the projects that we do? And I think that this idea of putting the evaluation at the end or in an appendix, or like make another paper for that, I think that that's very interesting. And maybe we do need those spaces, but how to bring evaluation as part of the project, how to make our participants like more, or how to give them more active roles in evaluation. And so I think that that's one part of the question. And the other would be, would creative evaluation or decision-making competence useful tools or techniques to bring evaluation into the project itself? So I'm gonna leave that point to see if anyone wants to say something. So how can we make evaluation more a more participatory process? Elisavet.
Juan, yeah, it's me, and Violet also has her hand raised, but and Pinar as well. If these are questions, I think we all have our hands raised because we thought about it a lot and we've written about it, and we also developed a tool for which started our motivation was to develop a tool to help people, research project teams, to embed evaluation into the projects, which automatically, if you embed it into the project, then automatically it's easier to draw the principles or the values from the way you do design into the evaluation design itself, if it becomes part of the project. And you think about it really early on when you design your project, instead of as an afterthought at the end of the project, where evaluation becomes an assessment instead of an evaluation. So by the way, if you want to learn more about the tool, just send us an email and we can let you know. We call it evaluation visualization design tool. But just a very short, try to give a short answer to what you were saying, Juan, about how to make evaluation more participatory. And there is participatory evaluation. There are methods and theories and methodologies, which doesn't mean that they're perfect or they fit any context or any environment. But I would think that developing our competencies as designers as to what evaluation suits the principles or values of the design methods that we use could help us make better decisions and understand better how we can use evaluation properly, make it part of the project instead of as an afterthought or something that can, think about at the end after everything has happened.
Yeah, thanks, Elisavet. Pinar, do you want to?
I think Violet was before. I'll let Violet go first, if that's okay.
Okay, sorry, I'm not familiar with Zoom, so I'm completely lost in this interface. So
yeah,
Violet,
okay.
please.
Thanks. I was just really thinking quite reflectively, like with all these points that were made about the idea of not engaging with evaluation through that process of doing a research project, it being something that's put on the end. something that's not even often considered, like when we're writing up our research, like for conferences. And it's kind of a shame, really, because evaluation is completely, focused on what we value. And surely that's something that's so important when we're doing a research project, the values that run through why we're doing it, what the motivations for doing that project were. And it sort of highlights how important the evaluation process is. So it's something I think, collectively, as, designers, as experts in our fields, we need to be like focusing more on. And Elisavet's already briefly mentioned, then you have one about creative evaluation methods. And that's something that we're exploring in our research that potentially could help mitigate some of these challenges. And that is about bringing a design approach to evaluation, which might make it more relevant for design practitioners and in the way that they're evaluating. So again, please, if you're interested in that area, do contact us, and it'd be lovely to have further discussions on that. But yeah, it's a really interesting discussion. So thank you for raising this point, because it's lovely to have actually a platform to talk about these issues.
Thank you, Violet. I'm just going to add something there. And so I know that I was the person who proposed that conversation, how to bring or how to do evaluation in designerly ways. But then I think that then if we do it in that way, then there will be another problem. And it is, how do we put our research into dialogue, or how do we show the relevance of our research to other disciplines? And again, I'm thinking of my interactions with professionals from the healthcare sector. For them, the projects I do are completely are just interesting, but they don't take it very seriously, because the evaluation methods that I use for them are based on anecdotes for them. So I think that it's very complicated, because we have to find somehow a middle point where we do things in a PD or designerly ways, but at the same time allow us to have a dialogue or develop an understanding with other disciplines. Okay, but enough of that. Please, Pinar.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but I just want to say that echoing what Elisavet said and what Quynh said is that evaluation being an afterthought and evidencing for accountability is perhaps one of the troubles, that evaluation is not thought of something that can contribute to knowledge exchange, build knowledge, evidence change, and things like that. So that's why we were interested in understanding how people can embed evaluation into their projects or research early on as they are planning the design of their research. And another thing that I was thinking about, because I also teach, I constantly think about how we neglect teaching about evaluation to students. And usually evaluation is thought of usability testing and understanding of how we can further develop and improve our products, but not always we think about evaluation as testing different processes and methods that we use in our practice. So maybe it also needs to change from the ground up. The way that we think about evaluation needs to change, and with the way that we talk about evaluation when we're educating may also need to change. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's where things have to change, or that if we want to change something, we have to start by changing design education. Thank you, Pinar. Harald.
Yes, hi. Thanks so much for sharing your experiences with evaluation. I don't have too much experience with evaluation as in justifying or proving that your project was valid or participatory or good to other external stakeholders, but we used evaluation of design decisions in our processes to teach participants about consequences of design decisions and help them take part in guiding our design processes. So I'm not sure if I have the same understanding or if this is the same type of evaluation that you're interested in, but we really found giving the participants different directions to try out and really understand as very helpful tools in facilitating the design process.
Thanks, Harald. I do think that decision-making competence is somehow related to evaluation, because it is at some point participants who are almost pre-evaluating design methods, design prototypes, and so on. Pinar had a question for Harald. Do you want to make that question, please?
Sure. I was wondering, what were your insights, or did you have a chance to go back to the people that you engaged in participatory design? Were there any change in how they were thinking about decision making and the consequences of their decisions? Was there any change, or how did you share your insights with that group, if you have?
So I'm not sure if they began to make decisions in a different way, but this was a project where we had weekly or bi-weekly meetings and really went through the entire process of designing a communication device with the participants. So they did use their experiences and reflections on prototypes and possible design directions to steer the design, and it was really engaging to see how many opinions and thoughts they had formed after using these prototypes over time, and they really had confidence in voicing their opinions, and yeah, it made the design process really fun and engaging, and yeah, but I'm not sure if they made decisions in a different way. So I'll think a bit more about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, Quynh, before that, and because we don't have much time, there's this discussion in the chat about terminology and about this idea of evaluation being too dry, and the question is if we need to reframe the term of evaluation and maybe use something that it's more related to reflection, reflexivity, feedback, iteration, critique. Anyone wants to add something to that discussion in the chat or propose something in relation to that? Okay, I do have something to say about it. I think that new terminologies, reframing things is something great, is really good. But because participatory design and collaborative approaches to design are becoming so popular even beyond design, and because part of the idea with collaborative approaches to design is to collaborate with stakeholders, I think that there are sometimes issues when we use completely different terminologies for research processes. So if everyone else calls something evaluation, and then we say I don't call it evaluation, I don't do evaluation, I call that process in this way, or what I do is this. And I think that it would be interesting in terms of constructive discussions, in terms of producing new knowledge, but it can be complicated. Okay, the session. Okay. Quynh, do you want to say something in 30 seconds?
Yes, I think like the discussion was great. And I think what I got from it is that we're well aware of the responsibility that we have as researchers. And that's also the thing I enjoyed the most about the design decision competence paper, that you say that we have as designers and researchers the responsibility to give the people the capabilities, the abilities to actually do participate meaningfully. And also that we are then aware like how the dynamics and the power shifts between these different stakeholder groups and such. Yeah, like I think all the discussions were super interesting. I would have liked to continue on.
Great. Thank you very much to all the presenters. Thank you, Sophia. Sophia is going to show us the slides of what's next.
1 second, sorry for that. 1 second.
It's fine. Anyway, while Sophia puts the slides of what's next, thank you again. Have a nice day, nice afternoon, and nice evening.
Thank you.
This is what is coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you all. Bye.